For as long as I can remember, we've been going up to our family cabin. The cabin is located in Somerset County, which is only 70 miles outside of Pittsburgh, but it feels like it's a world away. What started out as an escape from my parents and their friends in the late 1960s has turned into what I would call the heart and soul of the Kushner family. I hired my Uncle Nate to interview just about every member of my immediate family with the intention of answering some very basic questions about the cabin's rich and colorful history. But as I started to watch the footage from those interviews, what I took away was so much more than just a simple history lesson. There is something much deeper that draws us here. And what I was really able to capture with this film, more than anything else, is the answer to the question, what exactly is it that makes this cabin so special to all of us? When I open up the door to the cabin, I'm hit by the smell of smoky wood, quiet, and still air, which instantly transports me back to my childhood. There's a sense of timelessness and history that I always cherish and appreciate. There is an abundance of stories about how every fixture found its way here, quirky odds and ends, handwritten notes untouched for 50 years, old photographs of those people that mean the most to us. Each little piece and detail comes with its own fascinating story, a memory, and a reason for being here.
There were lots of keys that were floating around. One of them was a craftsman, he was a carpenter, and he was here, and one of those great snowfalls came, and of course he couldn't get out. His car was stuck here, and he couldn't get around. So Alfie made these snowshoes out of twigs and sticks and rope, and he wore those to get around the property and to get out to the main road.
My parents' good friend, Fred Samuels, and his brothers Barry and Arnie built the cabin and provided many of its original features and furnishings.
These lamps, there's one here, and there's one on the table over here. When Fred put the cabin together, he got them from his mother's house and brought them up here. This chest, it's called airplane furniture. I don't know if you see the airplane here. This was Fred's furniture from his mother's house when he was a kid. And when he built the cabin, he brought some of that furniture up here. This is actually very famous stuff, the airplane furniture.
The property has a rich history that predates even the cabin itself. My parents have been part of that history from the beginning and can share with us that story.
This property, the land, was purchased by Fred Samuels and his two brothers, Barry and Arnie, in 1967. Fred was convinced, as was many of us, that the revolution was coming. This was during the turbulent 60s with the Vietnam War, the demonstrations, the bombing of the buildings at the University of Wisconsin, and all the mass demonstrations. Fred was convinced that we needed a place to escape to.
Louis and I were in law school. Fred was a friend of ours, and we would come up and camp on the land with Fred and his group of friends.
Sleeping in sleeping bags. Fred found some prefab structure, right? But it needed to be built and needed to be finished because it was just the raw structure. And Fred hired Lars Skyling to do the finish work. Lars Skyling was the ski instructor at Seven Springs. For those of us of our vintage, everyone remembers because Seven Springs would advertise, and it would be Lars Skyling on the radio with this very heavy Austrian accent talking about the snow conditions. In the summer, Lars was a contractor. So Lars built this place. Lars also built the original lodge at Seven Springs. So the architecture of this place is identical to the original lodge at Seven Springs. The stonework, the beams, the fireplace. And this is a smaller twin of the original structure at Seven Springs. The house was built in 1969. When Jason was a little tiny baby, we would bring him up here and put him in a backpack, and Fred would carry him around.
Fred had a very interesting group of friends. They were very creative, they were very avant-garde, and they were all single. And these friends and Fred were very kind to us who had the only baby, Jason, here. And we spent a lot of time with this group of people.
We then became friendly with Fred's older brother, Barry, who was married and had 2 kids, our kids' ages. And so we all would come together up to the cabin. So we were here more than the Samuels because we'd come with Fred, we'd come with Barry, sometimes we came with Arnie.
As Jason got a little older and Ashley came along, and then Ryan, our focus shifted to other friends who had children, and that was Barry and Cheryl. When we said, oh, well, we're using your hospitality so much, we should buy our own place up here, and they would always say, you can never use a country house enough to justify its expense. Just use our house. Don't buy yours, just use it.
But we did. And in 1978, we decided we needed our own place, that we were always here. And I found a place, and I brought Barry up to take a look at it. And he said, you know, my brother Arnie is moving to Florida. Why don't you buy his third? So Sandy and I bought Arnie's third, and we owned it then with Barry and Fred.
Over the years, my parents and the Samuels introduced a few noteworthy changes to the cabin. One of the most significant signature additions was adding the hot tub that now sits on the lower level of the deck.
Fred, of course, always being ahead of his time, wanted to put a hot tub in. No one had ever heard of a hot tub if you didn't live in California. And he came to Barry and to us because we were partners. Hey, how about let's put a hot tub in? We didn't even know what a hot tub was, right? And Barry and I and Sandy and Cheryl, we had a conversation, you know. Look, this is a place where everybody plays out their dreams. If Fred wants a hot tub, we're getting a hot tub. And so that's when the hot tub and this lower deck was put in. That was probably in 1980. When Sandy and I first got married, Fred said, you should have a waterbed. No one in Pittsburgh had heard of waterbeds. Fred was always ahead of their time. We have this is a sheepskin on top of it, and this is the bladder. And this waterbed came from Sandy and my first apartment in Shadyside. One of the reasons, among others, that we brought it to the cabin, because the house we bought, we were concerned that the floor wouldn't be able to hold the weight of this waterbed. It's very, very heavy with the water. So the waterbed came to the cabin, and it's been here ever since. It's probably the only waterbed left in Pittsburgh.
Part of what Fred wanted was a pond on the property.
There was a government program to build ponds for whatever reason at the time. And we actually had some government subsidy to get the pond built.
But there was a problem. The pond is spring fed, and there are springs that go into that area, but the water would drain out. And for years and years, there was a big mud hole where the pond is today.
When she said numerous years, we're talking maybe 15 years, we would stand at that rail there and talk about, now how are we going to get this thing? There were all these fantastic ideas, you know, rubber liners, this and that, all of which we never did. And then one spring, it just held the water. It was like you came up here and, oh my God, there's a pond. At the very beginning, no one even considered swimming in it. Then we stocked it with some fish, so we used to fish there. And then one weekend we invited some friends, and they got here before we did, and they went down to the pond and went swimming. And that was the beginning. Cy and Ruth Drescher were the first people in that pond that came, and we couldn't believe they went swimming, and so we all started to swim there.
Yeah, I mean, the pond has such a cool history here. Our kids just use it totally differently than we did when we were growing up. And the big reason for that is because of the dock and the boats that we've put in the pond. So when we were kids, the only way to get into the pond was actually through the shore. And the rocks down there are super sharp, and the mud is just really deep and soupy. And it just was not nice getting into the pond. So we just didn't do it that often. I think like 30 years ago, my dad was having lunch with a friend's father. His name was Ira Rubin. My dad wanted to install a dock. Ira flipped over a napkin at lunch, came up with a drawing, and now it's just completely changed the nature of the pond. You know, when we're here with our kids in the summer, they're jumping off that dock literally hundreds of times, and they're boating around and just using this in a way that was really unimaginable when we were growing up.
How is it?
Dad! Oh, thank you. Ready. Are you filming?
Am I filming?
Yeah.
I am now.
Wait!
As kids, we always loved going to the country, as we used to call it. It always felt special packing up the station wagon and heading up for the weekend. Ashley, Ryan, and I each have our own unique and memorable experiences from growing up there.
Ryan, how about you?
And it's these memories that become part of why the cabin is so special and important to us.
I don't ever remember it not being part of my life. We always came here. So some of my earliest memories are being here with my family, and then we were always here with the Samuels. I always remember being here with them, especially on, the big holidays like Thanksgiving and the long weekends. So they were always like very much part of the fabric. I remember Fred's wedding to Sue Samuels here. I remember being at the wedding, which I thought was like amazing. I had never seen anything like it. I remember that they had filled the hot tub up with ice and had all these drinks in it, which like totally blew my mind that you could like use the hot tub for that purpose. And I always remember Fred, he was always like a little intimidating to me, even though he was like so warm and nice, but they were very different than, like my family or, Barry and Cheryl, and it was just like they were always like very cool and very like kind of exciting. It was always kind of like exciting things that they were like doing or talking about.
My earliest memories were parking the car at the top of the road because there was so much snow, and then trying to walk but the snow being way above my head, and just walking like seemingly forever to get to the cabin.
We would get snow up to the window sills, and we couldn't get down the roads. This was before four-wheel drive. So we would park on the road, and we would have to break snow and carry the kids because the snow was higher than they were.
for whatever reason, I just remember winters up here with the Samuels and skiing with them at Hidden Valley and Seven Springs. I'm not so sure that John would have given me the time of day back in Pittsburgh, but up here, we were equals.
I remember watching them play together and learning about who they are and how they relate. And I was sort of like the younger kid, just sort of like tagging along and playing as much as I could have.
Come on, Dad, do you have me?
I got you now.
This is a picture of my brother. Jason is his name. And this.
All right, I'm good. Now let's see what's working. Our kids grew up here. This was their childhood. In the city, everyone's busy. Our kids were in school. I worked all the time. Sandy was working, raising kids, driving carpool. One week goes into the other, and Saturday the kids are at their friend's house, they're at the JCC, they're whatever. And here, the cabin, we were always here. We didn't miss those periods of quality time.
This was a place where we could really relax and really get to know our kids. We would often bring Mrs. B, who lived with us for 26 years. She loved the cabin.
What would you like to be recorded for history?
No.
Huh? Anything you'd like to say for history? I don't know, when we look at you 20 years from now.
We always brought our dog to this place, and each dog totally loved their time here. Now we have Bodie Bear, but as each of the previous dogs died, I put their collar on a little peg here in the cabin. This was Pepper's collar, and our next dog was Farley, and this was Farley's collar, and our last dog was Winston, and this is Winston's collar. And on Winston's collar, when he died, we said, thanks for a great 15 years. Anyway, yeah. Part of the philosophy of this cabin from its inception to even today is that the cabin is here to enjoy. None of the bedrooms belong to any of the particular family members. Whoever comes up for a weekend, they can choose what bedroom where they want to sleep. There's no ownership. This cabin is for everybody.
To make any change, you kind of have to go through a committee vote. It's like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And
that's important to your dad to keep that.
Yeah, I think it's important to everyone. It's like everyone wants to know that when they walk in, it's exactly as they left it. Like you think you can change something and maybe no one will notice, and everyone notices the first second they walk in. Like that chair was in a slightly different spot. Those dishes are different. Who got rid of the spices in the spice rack? Because I think it's, it brings a lot of comfort, right? Just to know, and everyone's very respectful of it too. And, when you leave, you really leave it kind of spotless so that the next people that walk in, they just have continuity. And it's been that way for, I guess, probably about half a century at this point.
So this is a hat rack. Many of these hats have been exactly in the same spot as they've been for 25 or 30 years. Two of my best friends, Scott Wiseman and Dave Levine, have been coming up to the cabin since we were in high school. Almost 40 years later, they still love wearing the same hats that they wore as teenagers. Every time they visit, they were amazed that the hats are still in exactly the same place. This is just so symbolic of the cabin and how nothing ever changes. They've been there for so long. They've been on people's heads. They each have a separate story that's been lost in time. If I removed one of these hats, somebody would walk into this cabin and within 5 minutes, they would look at the hat rack and ask where it's gone. So this is the record collection. We all love it. I think you would be very hard pressed to find any album made after 1979 in this collection. The biggest source has been my parents and their record collection. They've always really been into music. Lauren's mother also contributed a bunch of albums. We talk about the timelessness. We talk about when you open up the door, how you smell the fireplace, the stillness of the air. We talk about the hat rack and how nothing changes and moves on it, how the chairs are exactly positioned and exactly how you left them the time before. And this record collection is part of that timelessness. Just the fact that these are albums that have been around for 40 or 50 years, that probably my father was listening to them in college and we're listening to them now. The cabin's it's a really special place with no TV, no Wi-Fi. To be honest with you, pretty limited cell service. I'd say it's like a modern day refuge. And we certainly came up here a lot during COVID, and it was just so important to have a place you could just escape to. You come up here and there's not a whole lot to do other than hang out, go for walks, spend time in the hot tub, shoot BB guns. You know, we have a lot of activities that are fun.
It's kind of like every time you come here, you're sort of like in summer camp a little bit. You're like back in a cabin, and that's like my other favorite place in the world. Seeing the changes in the seasons and just really appreciating nature and being a part of it. And then I think also, you know, just kind of like hanging out, like listening to music, chatting, spending great time with your family.
It's great when it's just my family here. It's even better when it's my family plus my parents. It's even better when we add Ryan. It's even better when we add the Aura box.
It's a nice place to come and be able to escape kind of everything else that we do during the week, work and school for the kids, and just let loose. We put up a zip line and a ninja course. We have the pedal boat. The kids have a tire swing. They've made a kids fort and they've built these trails through the woods. It really gives them kind of a place to be creative and do outdoorsy things that we don't have at home.
No, it's kind of nice because we don't have to worry about school at all, and we don't have to worry about anything because we're up here and there's like nothing that you have to do up here. I mean, you can't do like schoolwork. I mean, you don't have any cell service or very limited cell service and no Wi-Fi. So it's fun to have special time with the grandparents, especially up here because there's so much to do. Even like if we were up here for like a year, we still wouldn't get everything done.
I wouldn't undersell how nice it is to come here and to be away from everything. And like to know there's that consistency. Like it used to be we would get no reception here, and now we get like 1 bar or 2 bars. But I mean, the fact that you come here, you listen to the records, you can lie on the couch, take a nap, it's quiet, you sit in the chairs, you read a book. I mean, these are things that you shouldn't be, you have to travel somewhere to do those things, but just sort of like the way that the hecticness of life and the pace of it, I feel like that all stops here.
If Jason and the kids are out building the trails, sometimes I'll just sit on the deck in one of the Adirondack chairs and read a book or a magazine, which is a nice time to relax, which I never relax at home. So, or sit on the porch swing and watch them play in the yard, you know, and then go in the hot tub in the evening. And it definitely is a place where at home, there's always something I could be doing, cleaning up or making dinner. But here, if there's, you know, after dinner's over and we're just all hanging out, I don't feel like there's anything I have to be doing.
They'll tell you about this, but the whole thing with the frogs and watching the frogs mate and then the tadpoles, and like that's been a really cool thing of like every summer when we come back, you know, what's the status of the tadpoles? And the kids running down to the pond to see if they're tadpoles or they're little frogs.
The frogs are like
one of the best parts of the cabin.
What do you like about them?
They're really small and really fun to catch, but then you can always put them back. There was a lot of frogs and they were really loud. And we went at night and it was really cool and we could like see their eyes underwater.
There's thousands of them.
We both see that our kids who have kids, they're doing some interesting things with his cabin. For instance, with Jason and his kids and Lauren, they have really made this pond a waterfront.
In the pond, we have a lot of fun. Logan, he's pretty good at saving stuff.
So whenever something is in the middle of the pond, I'll go out and get it.
Like one time, my cousin Penelope, she's fishing, the bobber fell off. Logan went out and got it. And like if like we leave something out there and then we're done, then he'll go. And the pond's like one of the really special places to be. And sometimes when the ice is pretty thick there in the winter, we can go ice fishing. We don't actually go fishing, but we drill the hole. And we'll like run across the pond, walk across it.
Also, like we bring sleds down, and if there's snow down, we'll like sled down that little hill and then onto the ice and we'll go really far.
Yeah, it's really fun to slide down the banks and then like you just keep going. But we have to drill a hole with an ice auger. It's pretty hard to make sure it's deep enough.
In the fall, we normally build leaf piles.
Oh, huge ones.
Like really tall. One of us will push us down the hill, and then we'll go right into the leaf pile.
Logan, next.
So we have like loppers, and we hand cut all these trails. It was really overgrown before we were building these trails. We also built like some like ramps and like bridges whenever there's like a log and we can't move it. Like right here, we built like a bridge over.
They have made a trail sort of around the pond that wasn't there. They've made a little fort area, sort of their little clubhouse in the woods.
This is our kids' fort, and this door is the fairy godmother door that the fairy built.
My father had given us an old door from an actual outhouse in West Virginia. We could never figure out a place to put this. When our grandsons, Dylan and Logan, figured out they wanted to make this clubhouse in the woods, we took that door down there, and now it's the door to their clubhouse right in the woods. And I just think my father would get so much enjoyment if he knew that that door was being used in this way.
Dylan and Logan and Penelope and Felix and the rest of the grandkids, when I see them playing here, I remember that this was like my nature place. If you draw that out, like now I work in climate change, I work in climate protection. I think you can draw a pretty straight line between having this outdoor nature, more raw space, and understanding how it's important in human psychology and human relations.
When the first two grandchildren were born, we planted a tree for the two boys. Those trees are still on the way down to the pond. And we always had a garden. That garden's been totally taken over by Jason and his boys. It's just so wonderful to see the continuity.
So this is the garden. It's very special to us because we plant it every year. We always are very proud of our jalapenos. The bugs don't like to eat the jalapenos
Because they're really spicy.
And it's as big as my hand almost because they're spicy. So these always grow out. And then we have our herbs. This is rosemary. What's this?
This is a weed.
No, this isn't. It's I think parsley.
Oh yeah, this is parsley.
Then we have our basil and our green bell peppers and mint over there. But mint usually doesn't work.
Mint normally gets eaten And our basil.
And so we got a bell pepper this year. This one.
It's pretty.
And you can kind of sometimes hear that it's hollow. And that means it's, you put this in your pocket.
So when we're here as a family and I'm here with the boys, my goal is to make the weekend as much fun for them as possible. But I always think about how are they going to relate to this 40 years from now. And we always joke whenever we're doing something silly up here, drilling a hole in the ice if it's cold or tobogganing. Is there anybody else at Shadyside that's doing this right now? And the answer is no. And I think they appreciate the uniqueness of the cabin in the same way that I appreciate the uniqueness of the cabin.
Oh, so I get all the, you get all. Is that Tennessee?
Papa.
So thank you.
Papa. The hot tub's leaking downstairs. We need you.
All right, okay. All right. You're lucky. You got
Is this a manufactured crisis just for the film?
How smooth is he gonna be down the steps?
He gets it all.
Yeah. Look how smooth he is going down.
We have a leak going on.
I saw it was wet over there.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a hose. The hose is
Okay.
leaking. I'm thinking if we shut this valve, all
me
we're
see.
gonna get is residual.
Well,
I don't know whether it's
is
like
it still leaking now?
yeah, it's still dripping. Yep.
Is the hot tub warm at least?
Let's see. Why don't we just get a big screwdriver and
I did. I tightened it.
you tighten
Yeah.
both of them? They probably haven't closed in years. Well, since we installed it.
Hold on, I just want to mark this.
All right, so here, close that one down. Probably goes the other way.
You'll see. There's a C and an open. Ryan recently called me the keeper of the cabin, which is kind of funny. And I think it's true. I'm the only one of all the siblings that lives in Pittsburgh. I take responsibility for a lot of the repairs and maintenance and coordination. There's a lot of things that I take care of that maybe nobody notices. Walking through the woods and cutting down monkey vines that damage the trees. This used to be all jagger bushes and brushes. I cleared it out a couple years ago. Took a bit of time, and now you can see these small little saplings are growing. One of the biggest challenges we face with a cabin is the maintenance. It takes a lot to keep this place running smoothly. And with all the ways that we've found to slowly update the cabin while keeping it current and still retaining its nostalgic charm, there is just no way that we could do it on our own. Over the years, we have built some really great friendships with our neighbors like Brad and Lori Pletcher. Their help, guidance, and friendship has been invaluable.
We're right across the street, and Lori cleans the house about every week. I come over about every other week and check the hot tub to make sure that the heater's working in the wintertime and put chemicals in it. And we watch the place. We can see who goes in the driveway and, if the alarm goes off in the middle of the night. I have a grandson that's 10 years old, and he knows Dylan and Logan, and they're the same age about. And he likes to come over with them. He asks us all the time, is Dylan and Logan over there? And he likes to fish, and so does Logan and Dylan.
Many of our best friends have been to the cabin. Coming up to the cabin in high school without our parents was a significant milestone, almost like a rite of passage. I remember as a teenager spending weekends here with my friends, just hanging out and listening to music on the record player. These same traditions have carried on well into our adult years. Whether it's tobogganing in the winter, taking leisurely walks, going on long bike rides, or simply spending time together. Everyone we've ever invited to the cabin has thoroughly enjoyed their time here. The cabin is a place where memories are made and friendships are strengthened.
There's something magical about what takes place here. Even if this was when the kids were young, the kids would go to sleep, the adults would be sitting up. And it's amazing what people talk about.
We've had so many friends through the years, good friends who've come here, or occasionally when There's a couple that we wanted to get to know them. We've brought them here. It's always worked out. We had a group, we still have, the Skelton Rod and Gun Club, 4 couples, us being one. We got our name from a gun club that's down the road. And this was the birthplace. And this was like our homeland for this group.
There was one summer where I was working and spending a lot of time in New York, and basically all of Jason, Ashley, and Ryan, we were all the kids, we were on the East Coast, and so we just picked a weekend and we had just a bunch of friends here. So we probably had, I don't know, 15 or 20 people here that were all friends. We called it Kushapalooza. I think that was also the first time that I met Ben.
I'd been dating Ashley for a couple months. She's like, my younger brother, who I hadn't met yet, is organizing a festival at the cabin. And I was like, oh, festival? Like, is there going to be like a band? Or like, what's going to be happening here? And this was called Kushner Palooza. And Ryan was trying to get this to catch on. And so I attended Kushner Palooza 2006. And Jason was there. It was the first time I met Jason. It was the first time I met Ryan. And it was about like 9 of Ryan's friends. I don't think Ashley was the only woman there, but maybe there was one other or 2 others. I grilled for everybody. We played some football in the pond. And what's funny is like Ryan is, you know, the nicest, friendliest guy ever. And he was pretty standoffish to me because I was dating his sister. And Jason was just like so happy that I was dating his sister. Like there's this guy from Pittsburgh who likes the Steelers, and like Ashley had been, you know, was living over, I don't know, whatever his perception of where Ashley was going to end up. And so that's a running joke in the family. Number 1, Kushner Palooza, and number 2, that like Ryan wasn't nice, which is like so opposite of Ryan.
Well, the funny thing is, actually, I went to high school with Ryan. So I had heard of the cabin years ago. I think he had come up here with friends back when we were in high school, but I had never been here. And then when Jason and I met, he always talked about how it was such a special place for his family. They had Thanksgiving here every year. He grew up coming here when he was a child. And eventually, after we were dating for a while, he wanted to bring me up here to show me the cabin and show me how special it was to him. I wouldn't say my family was outdoorsy. We were more like stay at the Four Seasons type of people. We went to Aspen, Colorado every year on spring break and stayed in a nice hotel and skied for 2 weeks, and went on various other vacations. But I wouldn't say we really ever went hiking or stayed in a cabin with my family. So we had to rent a car because we didn't own a car at the time living in New York. And it was supposed to be about a 5-hour drive up here. It was a snowy winter night. We were on the turnpike, and I just remember the snowbanks kept getting higher and higher. We're getting close, and Jason's like, oh, it's just around the corner. We're almost there. We're almost there. And it's pitch black and these, windy roads up in the country. And we drive by what I guess was the driveway, but I had no idea because it's pitch black and there's no markings or anything. And he missed the driveway. And I said, how do you not know where the driveway is to your own cabin? But now I understand because it's pretty desolate out here and there's no house number or street signs or anything. So we turned back around and finally we made it here. I think it was supposed to take 5 hours. It probably took us 6.5 or 7 hours. We had only been dating for a few months maybe. And Jason said, what if I asked you to marry me right now? I said, well, I don't really know you that well. We've only been dating a few months. So that was kind of the end of that. But we had a good time.
The cabin has been the heart of so many significant family events and holidays throughout the years. It's the place that continually draws our family together. There is a deep connection that we all share. Everything from weddings to Thanksgivings have happened at the cabin. On a personal note, I even proposed to Lauren here. Not just once, but twice.
Yeah, we always went for a run when we came up here. We always did the same route. It was about a 6-mile run. And there's this little bridge that goes over the stream kind of in the woods. And every time we'd run there, we'd like stop and give each other a kiss on our run and, keep going and just made it something fun. We called it the Kissing Bridge. And we were on a run. It was in the middle of winter. We're just on our same normal route, and we get to the Kissing Bridge and we stop, and all of a sudden he gets down on one knee and he proposed to me and at the Kissing Bridge, which was really special. And then I had to wait till we got home. I don't think we had phones on us or anything to, call our parents, and we were all excited. I think that was the fastest we had ever run the second half of the run on the way home.
This is where I got married. We got married. Ben gets really upset if I say like my wedding. But this is where we got married, which was really, really special. My brothers really wanted me to have the wedding here because they kind of figured that their weddings were not going to be here. It's true. And so I think everyone was really excited when we did it, when we decided to do it.
I was really happy. Like I was like, I would love to get married here. This is a beautiful place. And Ashley has so many incredible memories from her childhood here, and it's so special to the whole family that given the option of getting married here or like in a hotel somewhere, or like this was like, wow, this would be incredible. And we had this wedding that it was a really small wedding. I think there was only about 80 people there.
The amount of work that so many people put into it, but like not so much me, because I was living in Israel at the time. We basically flew in for our wedding. It was really special, and definitely a ton of work that my parents, especially my parents, did.
Louis and Sandy were very uptight about the whole.
Really?
Yes, it was a very stressful time for Louis and Sandy.
For an entire summer, we would come up here every single weekend and think about the logistics of how we were going to have a wedding here. Remember, we have no municipal services. We have a well, so there's a limited amount of water. We have a septic tank, which is very fragile, so you can only use it so much, right? There's no restaurant, caterers around here, right? Everything had to come from Pittsburgh. If you needed a toothpick, it had to be shipped from Pittsburgh. We rented executive porta-johns, right? We had to have a golf cart, which I drove up that main road with a helmet on because I rented it down this place called Scottyland, so we could get the grandmothers down the road to where the wedding was going to be, right? We had to have a tent because what happens if it rains? I mean, we had to have a caterer. We had to have, linen supplies. It was a logistical nightmare, right? But it was beautiful. Ashley walked down those steps among the mountain laurels. Ben came down the road with his parents.
I really loved it. It was spectacular.
Yeah, just like that people came, and it's not like a very easy place to really get to, and it was beautiful.
Thanksgiving is our kids' favorite holiday. They want to celebrate it here. And interestingly, they married spouses whose family, but they didn't have a strong Thanksgiving tradition as to they have to have Thanksgiving at a certain place. So we've been so lucky. We have invited all of our Machatonim, Sandy and Bernie Pinsker, the Orbachs, Linda and Alex, to come here for Thanksgiving, and they all come here. We don't have the situation where every other year we'll have Thanksgiving with our family. It just works.
And we set a table that goes all the way the entire length of the cabin, and it's exactly the same food every year, same seating. Goes back to the theme of nothing changes. So there's a tremendous tradition here, right?
Every year we sort of like fight about the same things, like what time are we gonna like drive up on Thursday? Like, why can't we leave really early? Why do we have to leave? Let's make sure we get there early. It's like the same debate every year. We get here the same time every year. We start playing football the same time every year.
No blocking.
Yeah? What?
No blocking anyone over 60 years old.
Show them your driver's
can't-
license,
you-
Coach.
We always come play football here, and then we have this huge dinner with lots of people, and there's really good food and desserts.
And I think it's also a thing where whenever we say, we always get to the cabin, unpack, and then we say, we're gonna leave and go to the football game. And when we say we're leaving, it's an hour till we actually get here.
That's also a tradition.
And then when we get here, Dobby starts warming up all the food. When we get back, we have a nice warm dinner, and everybody's there.
It's definitely, I think, the most important holiday for all of us. It's certainly our favorite holiday. We always come here. We always have come here. It was clear when we married people, they were always going to come here. That law was laid down pretty early.
It's a great tradition. And one of the things I think that's really meaningful is we all go around the table and say what we're thankful for that year. And I think that's something really special, especially hearing from everyone from the grandparents down to the grandkids.
Yeah, when everybody stands up at Thanksgiving, my heart swells, and I'm truly, truly thankful for what I have.
I am, as always, thankful for this wonderful family.
I'm thankful for the cabin, for Dobby always spending so much time making the meal.
I'm thankful for all my family and Dobby and Papa who, do all this work and, are always, thinking about the rest of the family and, trying to help everyone and, Dobby, she spent, for the past, every single time I've been at her house, she's always been cooking something for a family event.
And I don't think there's a better moment in my life every year than this. What am I thankful for? Yeah. There's just nothing better. So, and I'll just play the same, repetition that I've done for the last, whatever we've been doing is 25 years. Thank you, Sandy, for making all this happen.
I don't have a brother. Lewis didn't have a brother, so we're like, I don't even call him my cousin anymore. The cabin is coming here for Thanksgiving. I don't even know how to describe how cool it is. It's like a Jewish Norman Rockwell.
Probably 1995, right? Fred and Barry went to New York to, it was a bike ride. It's called the 5-Borough Ride. It's not a race. It's like Pedal Pittsburgh. And I would have gone with them, except it was marathon weekend and I was running the Pittsburgh Marathon. So I ran the marathon and Sandy picked me up, and this was pre-cell phone, right? We were walking in the house, literally, and the phone was ringing, and it was Cheryl that Fred fell off his bike into the arms of a paramedic who was right there. He had some sort of heart issue and passed away, right? And from that moment on, Barry and Cheryl never stepped foot in this place again. It was too painful because this was Fred. This house was Fred. It was his creation, his dream, his creativity. And Barry, it was just too difficult for Barry to come. And about a year or two after that, it was just inevitable. Barry called and said, "Hey, look, we want to sell. We're never going back there." And so we bought Barry's half, and that's when we owned the entire place together in 1997. Okay, so then we owned it alone, and I was concerned about the economics because particularly, our kids didn't want to come up on the weekends. They were in you know, they had friends and we weren't going to leave them alone in the city, right? So I was concerned about the economics of it. And we made an arrangement with the Oliphants, Steve Oliphant and Judy Roscoe, right? I grew up with Judy. She was sort of extended family.
The Oliphants had come here before we owned the cabin fully. They loved this cabin. And so for several years after we owned the cabin, totally, they would continue to come up here. And not only was this cabin a big expense, but it was a huge amount of responsibility, which fell on Lewis's shoulders. And so we decided at some point that since the Oliphants and the Roscoes, they were such lovely people, they loved this cabin, they loved us, we loved them, that we would sell half to them. And that's what we were going to do. They were very excited about it. We agreed on a price. And the day that we were to exchange the hand money, I came up here myself to this cabin alone, which was very unusual for me to do.
The only time ever.
Before
or since, right?
And I looked around the cabin, I came inside, I sat at the table in the living room, and my thoughts were, we shouldn't be doing this. We should not be selling half to anybody. We are creating a monster. The Oliphants, Roscoes, they had adult children. At this point, our kids were probably in college, and our kids didn't know their kids. They were a blended family. And my concern was, how are all these kids ever going to figure out this place? We are creating a monster. So with these thoughts in mind, I called our good friend, Mel Solomon. He was in Pittsburgh, and I ran through my thoughts about creating a monster and should we be doing this? And Mel said, Sandy, you're on the right track. You should not be selling half. You should be keeping it. And he empowered me. We were to exchange hand money at a restaurant called the Elbow Room that evening. And we went to the restaurant. We were meeting Judy Roscoe, Steve Oliphant, different last names, but they're married. And I said, we just can't do this.
They had the check in their
check
pocket.
in their pockets. It was a very uncomfortable moment for us. But what happened afterward was that our friendship continued, and Judy and Steve, although they didn't own this property, we shared it with them.
How privileged we are to have this place. How unique it is. How our lives, and hopefully their lives, will be enhanced by this place. There's something special about this place.
It's hard for me to say it. I'd say it's all about family. And you can have some differences. You can have peaks and valleys in your relationships. But in the end, you have to trust that it's all about family. And that will be the overriding thing that gets you through any of the valleys to get you to another peak.
This cabin is like, you know, it's like the symbol of the family. It's the symbol of the family. It's the heart. It's almost like the heart of the family. Is what it is. It means so much to everybody.
Depending on your age, right, and time in life, you sort of have a different relationship to it. So I think the way that you think about it as a kid versus like when you're older and then have your own kids, like it's just constantly evolving, which I think is great. I think that's why it has like such a special place and such longevity in the family, because your, relationship to the house can kind of, into the space kind of changes, and like what you want out of it kind of changes.
It's how it's taken care of and how people treat it that give it that homey feel.
When I invite people up, I say, would you like to come up to our cabin? I think I've finally embraced the fact that I'm part of the Kushner family and this is our cabin, and you know, we're proud to show our friends and bring them up here, and everyone always loves the experience coming up here for a weekend.
About the future, I love that it just continues as it is. Slowly changing, slowly adapting over time, always being inclusive of family and inclusive of friends.
20 years from now, I hope it just looks just like this, and everybody's using it the way we use it.
I think a lot about how my parents have invested so much time and effort into making sure that the cabin has remained such a special place over all these years. It's a testament to their love, hard work, and dedication, and they have set the bar really high. And I know that Ashley and Lauren, Ben, Ryan, and myself are trying to do our best to ensure that the cabin remains a special place for Dylan and Logan, Felix and Penelope. And one day, when the torch is passed, I am sure we will all be happy knowing that they are doing the same for their children. And so what started out as a film to document a simple historical narrative has turned out to be so much more meaningful. The cabin story is woven into the fabric of this family, and we owe an enormous amount of gratitude to our parents and the Samuels for their vision and foresight. We also need to give a big thank you to those friends, family, and neighbors that continue to keep the cabin so vibrant and full of life. Because in the end, as my mother would say, the cabin is no one's, but at the same time it's everyone's, to enjoy, protect, and cherish.
Parked my car on the side of the highway, watching the automobiles go by. Never felt this much pleasure from wasting time. Wasting time. Sky was gold, just how you like it. Road map told you where the treasure was hiding, but you threw it away and lost it. Tore to pieces, fell out of your pocket. Now you're lost, don't know where to go. Maybe you'll find me there waiting round the next bend in the road. I'll be your soldier, you'll be my buffalo road. It was just before the summer, danced for you in the square. We swam naked in the quarry, felt the cool wind in our hair. Not a word was spoken between us, no, we said it in a stare. I'm the lover to your fighter, the roller of your stone. I'll be your soldier, you'll be my buffalo road. Life's an open canvas, love's a leap of faith. Oh, my world was black and white before I looked upon your face. Now I'm sworn to run forever to whatever you may chase. Oh, I hear the constant ringing, coins echo in the well. Oh, the pyramids are calling us to seek and find ourselves. They alone shall know the story, and they're sworn to never tell. But I hope that you'll remember as you chase those sacred stones. I'll be your soldier. I'll be your soldier. Oh, I'll be your soldier. yourself alone.